Hello everyone, and welcome to a episode of Sports Arcade's new series, Rebuilds. In this series, we're going to be talking about potential cuts, what I would do if I was in position to rebuild the team and reload the team, and potential draft picks, potential trades, and potential hirings for coaches. We're also going to touch on free agents, cap space, departures, and cap space in the following years as well. And for the first video, we're going to start off with the Green Bay Packers, because the Packers are in a really curious situation. Last year, going into the season, trading for Micah Parsons, they looked like a serious Super Bowl contender. And injuries happened, they get eliminated in the playoffs, their defensive coordinator, he goes to the Dolphins. Now what? So let's dive on in. First, let's look at departures. Romeo Doubs, Rasheed Walker, Quay Walker, Kingsley Ignagbare, Sean Ryan, Malik Willis, Zane Anderson, John Fitzpatrick, Nick Niemann, Emmanuel Wilson, Bo Melton, Darian Kinnard, Chris Brooks, and Brenton Cox Jr. And as of today, the Green Bay Packers did cut Trevon Diggs already. Cutting Trevon Diggs was the most no-brainer cut that the Packers could have made this offseason, so I'm not surprised they made it. We knew this when the Packers claimed him from waivers. They were never going to pay his 5-year, $97 million contract extension that the Cowboys gave him. Other potential cuts include Rashawn Gary, Elton Jenkins, Brandon McManus, Aaron Banks, Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, and maybe even Josh Jacobs. Now, some people might be asking, why would you cut these guys? Well, don't you worry, because I'm going to get into a little bit of that. Right now, the Packers have about negative $10.7 million in cap space. That's a problem.
Hide the money, y'all! There's poor people around!
Cutting some of these players would help alleviate that. Number one on the chopping block, Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary just really hasn't been the same type of player since getting paid. Defensive rating, that's down. Rush defense, that's down. Tackle percentage, that's up in the last 4 years, but that's still down since 22 and 23, and it's still average overall. His pass rush, it's the second lowest in his career. Coverage, down. Snap percentage, down, but only slightly. If they cut him, they do have $17 million in dead money, but it does free up $11 million in cap space. It also frees up $31 million in 2027. Just this cut alone would bring the Packers up to $289,000 in their cap space. Elton Jenkins, another really obvious one, unfortunately. Elton Jenkins signed a pretty large contract extension in 2022. He's coming off a pretty bad leg fracture. He's 30 years old. His offensive rating has steadily been declining. His run blocking is declining, and it's average at best. His pass blocking has been pretty solid. However, it's steadily trending downward. If the Packers cut him, they free up $19.5 million, while only incurring about $4.8 million dead. If they were to cut Gary and Jenkins, the Packers cap space becomes $19.8 million. Brandon McManus. McManus got a extension after a really solid 2024 season. After a bad season in 2025, the 34-year-old might be a potential cut. Saves the Packers about $2 million in cap space, does incur about $3.3 million in dead. However, it saves the Packers about $6 million in 2027. The cap space after McManus, Gary, and Jenkins is almost $22 million. Those, I think, are obvious cuts. Now let's get into some of the cuts where I'm kind of iffy on. Aaron Banks, the 28-year-old guard, he was pretty average his whole entire career with the 49ers. And then he had a pretty slightly above average year. Got paid last year in a pretty much failure so far of an off-season free agency class, and he's back to average with Green Bay. His cap hit over the next 3 seasons averages out to about $22.6 million. It's obviously higher in 26 and progressively gets smaller all the way to about $20 million. The question with Aaron Banks is, do you want to bite the bullet now and free up about $22 million in 2027 and $19 million in 2028 while incurring about $20 million in dead cap this year and freeing up about $4.5 million in cap this year? Or do you think the 28-year-old will bounce back because it is more advantageous to cut him later? Cutting him in 2027 will give you about $13.5 million in cap penalty. Cutting him in 2028 will give you about $6.75 million in cap penalty. But, like I said, you think he'll bounce back and he's worth the $20 million cap hit? Or do you just want to bite the bullet now and start fresh? This actually brings me to a side tangent that I would like to get into before the rest of the cuts. We essentially have three options. Option A, all in. Spend aggressively in free agency for your needs and using up, if not all, the cap space and filling up the rest of the roster with your 8 draft picks. And then, of course, as the Packers always do, undrafted free agents. And then you have option B, build for the future, take a gap year. Take the year to rebuild as Micah recovers from his injury. Find out if you can find a trade partner for Devontae Wyatt. Make all necessary cuts for the future. Yes, this means Josh Jacobs, or even trying to find a potential trade partner for Josh Jacobs. And then fill the roster up with key free agents as well as key draft picks for the future. This doesn't mean developmental pieces. This means solid guys that are ready to get in now and grow with the system for next year. And then finally, you have option C. Blow it up, rebuild. Start from scratch. Now, this is only if the Packers say, you know what, none of this is right. Everything we've done since Aaron Rodgers has been a mistake. Let's fire Matt LaFleur, find trade partners for Jordan Love, Christian Watson, Micah Parsons, Xavier McKinney, everyone worth value. Do a Black Friday deal. Make all the cuts you need for the future. Free up as much cap space as you can for the future. And then use free agency for key, young, good players. Use your draft picks that you've acquired from your trades and build long term. Now, I don't think that this is going to happen, so this is the only option I'm really not going to entertain. It's also the only option I wouldn't even do. If I'm the head of the Packers, I think this roster's good enough. It just needs some tweaks. Back to cuts. Nate Hobbs. This one's really intriguing to me because his snap percentage went down. His defense has been average his whole career. I mean, he did have 2 really good years. His tackle percentage did go up. His pass rush has always been average to bad, but what are you expecting out of a corner? And then his coverage is pretty average his whole career. He had 1 good year though. If you cut him, that's $12 million in dead cap and you're freeing up about $800,000. However, if you cut him, you free up $14 million in 2027 and $15 million in 2028. I mean, judging off his previous year, 2 years, 23 and 24 in Vegas, I mean, he did exactly what you expected him to do in Green Bay. And he is only 26. He's also a big corner at 6'1", 195. Question is, do you want to keep paying him for him to potentially remain the same that he has the past 3 to 4 years? Do you think he can step up with his current defensive unit? Do you think he's worth 13, 14, and 15 million in 26, 27, and 28? I mean, his dead cap penalty to cut him is only 12 million in 2026, 8 million in 2027, and 4 million in 2028. And by the end of his contract, he'll be about 30 years old. I guess it matters on if you want to go with option A or option B. We'll dive into those here in a little bit. We got 2 more potential cuts, one of those being K9 Keyshawn Nixon. 5'10", 200-pound cornerback slash returnman. He's 28 years old and signed a contract extension in 2024 that ends after this next season. Overall, his defense is up pretty good. His rush defense, it's up and it's pretty good. His tackle defense, it's up pretty good. Pass rush, it was down this last year, but still pretty solid. His coverage, it was up this last year. Again, pretty solid. His returns, though, is down a lot. At this point in his career, he might just be a corner. If you cut him, you save about $5 million in cap space, but incur about $2.2 million in dead cap. Again, kind of if you want to go with option A or option B. And finally, the most iffy cut in my personal opinion, the 27-year-old, 5'10", 223-pound running back, Josh Jacobs. Jacobs was acquired in the 23-24 free agency class, and if they cut him, they have about $6.2 million in dead cap. However, they free up about $17 million in 2027, and they will also free up almost $8.3 million this year. Now, again, this is an option A, option B type situation because on all accords, Josh Jacobs is a top 5 running back in the NFL. I mean, his offensive rating, it was down, but it was still really good. His snaps were down by about 100 snaps, but that's just due to injury. He's still a workhorse. His pass blocking, that's his worst aspect of his entire game. It's not very good, but his passing grade was great, and his run grade was down this last year, but it's still really good. If you cut him next year, the cap penalty will only be about $3.5 16.1 million, and his cap hit in 2027 is about 16.6 million. That's why you have to figure in option A or option B, because I think either way, Jacobs is either going to have to restructure his contract or he might not be in Green Bay too much longer. $16.6 million cap hit is a lot next year, especially when you're paying Micah and Jordan Love. All right, so we're going to dive into option A first. Everyone within the Packers wants to go with option A and wants to still try to win because Micah's injury was a clean tear and he's back week 1. Perfect. All right, well, let's try to win a Super Bowl. In that case, I'm keeping Keyshawn, I'm keeping Hobbs, I'm keeping Jacobs, and I'm keeping Banks. I'm making our obvious cuts with McManus, Gary, and Jenkins. This leaves us with about $21.8 million in cap, and with our departures for free agency without re-signing anyone, the big needs to fill are wide receiver, 3 offensive linemen, linebacker, 2 edge rushers, and a kicker. This comes from the losses of Romeo Doubs, Rasheed Walker, Quay Walker, Gary Ignagbari, Sean Ryan, Elton Jenkins, and Brandon McManus. Now these are just the positions that had a lot of snaps. These are the biggest needs to fill. They are losing a lot of players like Zane Anderson, Malik Willis, Nick Neiman, but those guys didn't play a ton of snaps. They were more of backup players, which I'm not as worried about. But there's also some weaknesses in the Packers roster as is without losing those guys. The offensive line, the defensive line, the linebacker core, especially without Quay, corners, and maybe even the tight ends. I mean, I'm not sure. Luke Musgrave's contract is up after next year, and Tucker Kraft did just have a pretty bad injury. The Packers have yet to re-sign him as well. And it wouldn't be the first Packers tight end I've seen have a crazy year and then just fall off the face of the earth. I'm looking at you, Robert Tonyan. And the Packers do have 8 draft picks in this coming up draft. A 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 3 sevenths. Now for the draft, option A and option B have the same draft picks because I drafted around Green Bay's needs, both their needs from their losses and just positions they needed to improve. I did this out of probably about 100 PFF drafts, and I'll get into the draft picks after we get into free agency because that's how the NFL works too. So going into free agency with our mindset on a Super Bowl, I'm going after some key free agents and going to be using up most of our cap space in the process. I'm going to sign Austin Corbett to a 2-year, $4.4 million deal, Austin Schlottman to a 2-year, $5.5 million deal, Elijah Wilkinson to a 2-year, $5.7 million deal, Jelani Woods to a 2-year, $3.3 million deal, and here's the biggest signing, Eddie Pinheiro, 3 years, $20.1 million, Daquan Jones, 2 years, $5 million, Cole Holcomb, 2 years, $6.9 million, Derek Barnett, 2 years, $10.8 million, and then Joe Tryon, 2 years, $6.3 million. After it's all said and done with all these signings, cap space is sitting at about $1.7 million. We're going to be over the cap a little bit next year after we sign our draft picks, but we'll incur the penalty for that. We won't be overly over the cap space, so we won't lose a 5th round pick like the Texans did, but we might face a fine. After free agency, we shored up a lot of holes. We got a good center, guard, and tackle who are good at run blocking and pass blocking, a good solid backup tight end, a great kicker, a great defensive interior player, a good linebacker, and 2 decent edge rushers, filling most of our key needs. However, there's some other spots to fill. Let's go to the draft. After free agency, I still want to target some of our weaker position groups. With the 2nd round pick, I would love Jake Golday, linebacker, Keontae Scott, corner, Caleb Tierman, tackle, D'Angelo Pounds, corner, or ideally Lee Hunter, defensive interior. With the 3rd round pick, I would like Carter Smith, tackle, Nicky Pronges, tackle, Darnell Jackson Jr., defensive interior, Ahmad Moten Sr., defensive interior, or ideally Torian York, linebacker. With the 4th round pick, I would like J.C. Davis, tackle, Max I, tackle, Arizona State, not pronouncing his last name, not even going to try, Albert Regis, defensive interior, Julian Neal, corner, or ideally Katron Allen, running back. With the 5th round pick, I would like Cole Brevard, defensive interior, Le'Veon Moss, running back, Trey Zune, tackle, Ernest Green, tackle, or ideally Malachi Lawrence, edge. With the 6th round pick, I would like Zane Durant, defensive interior, TJ Guy, edge rusher, Diego Pavia, quarterback, Aiden Fisher, linebacker, Bud Clark, safety, or ideally DJ Harvey, corner. With the 7th round picks, I would like to get Grayson Halton, defensive interior, Daniel Harris, corner, Traydon Sukes, corner, Cameron Ball, defensive interior, Riley Mullen, tackle, Gary Shelton, defensive interior, or ideally Cole Payton, quarterback, Brandon Cleveland, defensive interior, and Jeff Pressey, tackle. Another glaring hole, defensive coordinator. Jeff Hafley went to the Dolphins. I have 5 names: Jim Leonard, Jonathan Gannon, Raheem Morris, Darren Jones, or Al Harris. I would love Al Harris. I don't know if he's the best fit, but I would love Al Harris. It's just fitting. I mean, who doesn't love that pick 6 against the Seahawks? I guess Seahawks fans. Now, we need to fill out the rest of the roster with some undrafted free agents. At least fill out the preseason roster, make for some competition, and who knows? Maybe you found the next diamond in the rough. Here's my undrafted free agents I'm going for. Quarterback, I'm going with Ethan Kay from Rutgers. Running backs, Dean Connors, Mel Brown, Adam Randall. Wide receivers, Lewis Bond, Colby Young, Malik Rutherford, and Max Tomczak. Tight ends, Tanner Arkin, Rohan Jones, Matthew Hibner, and Ethan Connor. Tackles, Micah Pettis, Ryan Bayer, Trevor Brock. Guards, Jeremiah Wright, Grant Giorgio, Daniel King. Centers, Jaron Crump, Sam Heck, and Nick Dawkins. Edge rushers, Trey Smith, Kieron Crawford, Mo Westmoreland, and Aiden Hubbard. Defensive interior, Gary Smith III, Landon Robinson, Chris McClellan, and Devin Eastern. Linebackers, Scooby Williams, Caleb Elerms Orr, Kayshawn Elliott, and Desmond Darnell. Corners, Devin Moore, Charles Demings, Toriano Pride Jr., and Avery Smith. Safeties, Kendall Davis, DQ Smith, Kendall Dolby. Leaving our ideal depth chart going into the preseason with quarterbacks, Jordan Love, Cole Payton, Desmond Ritter. Running backs, Josh Jacobs, Katron Allen, Marshawn Lloyd, Adam Randall, and Mel Brown. Wide receivers, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Dontavian Wicks, Colby Young, Max Tomczak, Malik Rutherford, and Vinny Anthony II. The tight ends room featuring Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgraves, Jelani Woods, Tanner Arkin, and Rohan Jones. The left tackle room, we're going to move Zach Tom over to left tackle. Jordan Morgan is a backup swing tackle for right and left tackle. And then we have Jeff Hersey, Trevor Brock, and Ryan Bayer. Left guards is led by Austin Corbett, then backing him up in another swing guard situation, Anthony Belton, followed by Daniel King, Grant DeJorio, and Jeremiah Wright. The center room is led by Austin Schlottman, the backups being Jacob Monk, Jaron Crump, and Sam Heck. The right guards are led by Aaron Banks, the backup swing guard, Anthony Belton, Daniel King, Grant DeJorio, and Jeremiah Wright. The right tackles are led by Elijah Wilkinson, the swing, Jordan Morgan, Jeff Hersey, Trevor Brock, and Ryan Bayer. Moving over to defense, the right edge rushers are led by Micah Parsons, backing him up, Lucas Van Ness, Malachi Lawrence, and Trey Smith. For the defensive interiors, we have Daquan Jones, Lee Hunter, Carl Brooks, Gary Smith III, Landon Robinson, and Brandon Cleveland. For the left edge rushers, we have Derek Barnett, Joe Tryon, Malachi Lawrence, and Kieron Crawford. For our weak side linebacker, we have Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and Desmond Darnell. For our middle linebackers, we have Cole Holcomb, McDuffie backing him up again, and then Scooby Williams. For our strong side linebackers, we have Torian York, Isaiah McDuffie, Kayshawn Elliott, and Caleb Elerms Orr. For corners, we have Nate Hobbs, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, RJ Harvey, Devin Moore, Charles Dennings, and Avery Smith. For strong safeties, we have Evan Williams, DQ Smith, Kendall Daniels, and Jay Green. Free safeties have Xavier McKinney, Victor Oladapo, Kendall Dolby, and Jalen Husky. The nickelback is still Javon Bullard, kicker Eddie Pinero, punter Danny Whelan, kick and punt returner Vinny Anthony II. That is option A, ideal. We're going for a Super Bowl depth chart. This would also set up the Packers for about $73 million in cap space in 2027 and $126 million in cap space in 2028. So if they do in fact win the Super Bowl, awesome. They can keep stacking. If they don't, they're still in a really good spot. Now, let's crack into option B real quick. This is if everyone comes to me and says, you know what, we want one more year to kind of build on top of what we have. We're not ready for a Super Bowl just yet, but we're just one step away. So let's aim for that. Well, in option B's case, we're cutting Nixon, we're cutting Hobbs, we're cutting or trying to trade Jacobs, we're cutting Banks, we're cutting McManus, we're cutting Gary, we're cutting Jenkins, and we're trading Devontae Wyatt away for a 5th round pick. This leaves our roster with a ton of holes, but it does give us about $53 million in cap space to work with just this offseason alone. So let's spend some money on some key free agents that are going to help us not only next year, but the year after as well. Let's dive on in. Free agency class doesn't look all that different from option A, but it does look different. We're going to sign Elijah Wilkinson to a 3-year, $8.4 million deal, Austin Corbett to a 3-year, $9 million deal, Luke Fortner to a 4-year, $30 $35 million deal. Najee Harris to a 1-year, $3 million deal. Isaiah Pacheco to a 1-year, $4.4 million deal. Kalavon Chazon, 3 years, $43 million. Cole Holcomb, 3 years, $10 million. Eric Stokes, 3 years, $29 million, bringing him back. And then Roy Lopez, 3 years, $26.1 million. The remaining cap space after these signings, $9.5 million, but we still have $108 million in 2027 cap space and $112 million in 2028 cap space. So it still leaves us in a good spot for the future while also preparing for tomorrow. The draft and the undrafted free agents pretty much looks the same, except with our extra 5th round pick. I want to go Aiden Fisher and Ernest Green instead of Malachi Lawrence, but the 6th, 7th, 2, 3, and 4th rounds are all still the same for me. This brings us to our ideal depth chart for option B. Quarterbacks: Jordan Love, Cole Payton, Desmond Ridder. Running backs: Najee Harris, Isaiah Pacheco, Katron Allen, Marshawn Lloyd, and Adam Randall. Wide receivers: Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Dontavion Wicks, Vinny Anthony II, Colby Young, Malik Rutherford, and Max Tomczak. Tight ends include Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgraves, Tanner Arkin, and Rohan Jones. Left tackle: Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Jeff Percy. Left guard: Austin Corbett, Daniel King, and Jeremiah Wright. Center: Luke Fortner, Sam Heck, and Jacob Monk. Right guard: Anthony Belton, Garrett DiGiorio, and Daniel King. Right tackles: Elijah Wilkinson, Jordan Morgan, and Ernest Green. Right edge rushers: Micah Parsons, Lucas Van Ness, Trey Smith. Defensive interior: Roy Lopez, Lee Hunter, Carl Brooks, Gary Smith III, and Landon Robinson. Left edge rushers: Kalavon Chazon, Keyron Crawford, and Mo Westmoreland. Corners: Eric Stokes, Carrington Valentine, RJ Harvey, Devin Moore, Charles Dennings, and Avery Smith. Strong safeties: Evan Williams, Jay Green, DQ Smith. Free safeties: Xavier McKinney, Kendall Dalby, and Oladapo. The nickelback is still Javon Bullard. Kickers, I'm opening things up a bit. I'm gonna have a kicking battle between Lucas Haversick, Rodrigo Blankenship, and Drew Stevens, kicker from Iowa. Punter is Danny Whelan. Kick and punt returner is Vinny Anthony II. And that is our option B ideal depth chart going into the preseason of next year. That's all we had today, y'all. That's me rebuilding the Packers, reloading the Packers. I'm working on another team next. A lot of work went into this video. I had a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work. So hey, if you enjoyed it, drop a like, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching another episode of Sports Arcade, y'all. Have a great rest of your day. And to all you Packers fans, go Pack.